Hey everybody, my name is Alexis Spivak, and today I'm going to tell you about special needs groups and disasters. But first, I'm going to show you a couple pictures of myself because I couldn't figure out how to input the video of me into the PowerPoint. You get a picture of me at Florida State, a picture of me on a camel in Israel, and a picture of me with my puppy dog Shaggy. Generally, I would want to begin with a definition of what a special needs group is. However, this definition varies from location to location. The term special needs also has a variety of different ways to explain it. A special needs individual has any number of characteristics that sets them apart from the general population. Some of these characteristics that might vary include medical, cultural, cognitive, racial, physical, or a mixture of the characteristics. A problem that we run into with special needs groups is that sometimes there are people who get forgotten about because their disability is invisible. This just means that you cannot see the disability by looking at the individual. I want to quickly tie this into something we learned about a couple weeks ago called the classical persuasion model by Laswell. The way I'm just going to tie it in is that the receiver's demographics might influence how the receiver understands a message from the authority source. So, some of the demographics that we can look at are sex, education, age, income, race, and ethnicity. These receivers can be members of a special population. Someone of a lower socioeconomic class might not have access to the television or newspaper on a daily or semi-regular basis in order to receive the message that the source is providing. Younger children or immigrants might not be able to understand the message if they hear it, either due to not being able to comprehend what is being said or because there is a language barrier. The next thing to think about when discussing special needs or vulnerable populations is where they might be located within a region during a disaster. People with disabilities or other special needs may be congregated in permanent residential facilities, temporarily in healthcare or residential facilities, such as nursing or transition homes, or living alone or with caretakers, and randomly dispersed within a community. Those who are living in facilities might not necessarily share the same disability as well. For example, my mom works as an occupational therapist in different retirement homes around the area where we live, and in each of the different retirement homes, she runs into a range of patients from having dementia to those who are perfectly coherent but are unable to have the full function of their bodies. It's also important to realize that some of the special populations might not actually have homes to live in. They might be homeless, they might be living out on the streets or living in homeless shelters, switching on a daily basis, so they might not have access to the information that is being provided. When evacuating these individuals as an emergency manager, you must think about the needs of the different types of special needs individuals in your specific location and in the general community. Like I mentioned a moment ago, these needs may vary per disaster or even within the same location during an emergency. Some of the biggest things that can impact those with special needs are notification of emergency, evacuation plans, emergency transport, access to medical care and medication, access to mobility devices or service animals while getting to a safe location, as well as access to all information regarding the disaster. I can only imagine how scary it must be to see all of these different things happening on around you, but not really understanding what's going on because you haven't had access to the information or you haven't been able to understand it because you can't hear or you can't see. When planning for disaster in areas where there is a population of these individuals, we must ensure that there is accessibility to the information in a format that they are able to understand. This might include having different types of alerts or having a sign language interpreter on television or going around to neighborhoods, making sure that everyone understands what's going on. Plans should include accommodations for walkers, wheelchairs, crutches, or people with scooters, especially when helping special needs populations to evacuate. Sorry. One of the problems that emergency managers have is that unless they reside in a special facility, those with cognitive, mental, or emotional problems are not likely to be recognized as having those special needs without coming out and saying it. As we know, there's a stigma against coming out and saying that you have a mental health condition, so these often fly under the radar as invisible disabilities. What additional steps do you think emergency managers should take in order to make sure that they know all of the important information about the victims of a disaster so that they can receive all of the help that they might need? During a disaster, the government provides resources to the victims, including those with special needs, and this extends to the special needs shelters. When you hear the word special needs shelters, this actually means a special medical needs shelter. These shelters are fully accessible and provide power and specialized equipment, such as oxygen tanks. Oftentimes, jurisdictions announce the location of special needs shelters well in advance of an event, such as a hurricane or a flood, so that people with special needs know their locations. However, this can also lead to security breaches, especially those who have orders of protection against different individuals, whether it's stalking or domestic violence. They will now know where people with special needs and disabilities will be located during during an emergency. However, some people choose not to leave their homes during an emergency and make the choice to shelter in place. A wide variety of people might choose this option, such as someone who uses a seeing eye dog who feels that a strange environment might not be the best for them and their animal. Another person might be an individual who is confined to a bed or wheelchair, who is afraid that they might not be able to receive the resources that they need once they arrive at a shelter or evacuation site. Here's my second question for you guys. One of the main goals of emergency management is to protect and save lives. As emergency managers, how would you go about justifying leaving an elderly person in their home because that's where they want to stay, when you know that you would be able to evacuate them safely and give them the care that they need? Think about that. Lastly, an example of an organization that is helping people with special needs during an emergency is the National Organization on Disability. Its job is to make sure that the emergency planning in all communities includes people with disabilities. However, they use the terms disability and aging specific instead of the term special needs because it combines social vulnerability characteristics as well as physical and mental disabilities. They've also done research that has found that when there's a liaison working between all levels of government, coordination of housing, communication accessibility, training, and special needs for special and vulnerable populations is much, much smoother. All right, everybody. Well, that's all I have for you today. Here is a list of my resources and references that I use. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me and let me know. I'd be happy to answer them for you. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day.